The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Leah Spokojny. I'm the Director of Account Management here at BDS Analytics. Today we're going to be talking about fitness, sports, and cannabis consumption. We are very excited and honored to be joined by three special guests. First, we have André, Kajlich, endurance athlete, motivational speaker, and lead brand ambassador for California-based CannaCraft. And for those of you who aren't aware, CannaCraft manufactures 5 of California's top-selling brands: Care by Design, Absolute Extracts, Satori Chocolates, Hi-Fi Hops, and Loud and Clear. Next, we have Nancy Whiteman, CEO, founder of Boulder-based Wana Brands. Wana Brands is the producer of top-selling cannabis-infused products in many markets nationwide, featuring a portfolio of diverse forms, including edibles, vapes, and extended-release capsules. Also from Wana, we're joined by Wana brand-sponsored endurance athlete Flavie Dokken, who also happens to be a member of the BDS Analytics employee family. Thank you so much, the three of you, for joining us today. This is definitely a topic we've been really excited and looking forward to. As many of you already know, the cannabis industry has been evolving at lightning speeds in the last few years, but the milestones we reach as an industry aren't always reflected in the perceptions of the general population, and stereotypes like that of the couch potato stoner have been hard to overcome. However, with legalization of cannabis spreading across the country and the Farm Bill changing the landscape of hemp-based products, we're seeing greater awareness and advocacy among all different types of consumers and for all different types of applications, like those used for fitness and athletics. Many professional athletes have entered the space, including NFL Hall of Famer Joe Montana, 6-time Olympic gold medalist Amy Van Dyken, and NBA's Al Harrington, just to name a few. We're seeing entire athletic events focused around cannabis, from consumption-friendly yoga to nationwide mega events like the Civilized Games. The modern canathlete offers the non-consuming world a new perspective on cannabis use and a new type of cannabis user to relate to. Before we dive into our discussions with these special guests, let's run through some data. We are a data company after all. And where I'm going to focus first is on some of the insights from our consumer insights work, which allows us to really understand the motivations, attitudes, and behavior of consumers and non-consumers for that matter. Let's start with the basics. Based on our most recent studies across legal states, 67% of adults 21 plus either consume cannabis or are open to the idea of consuming. Of those consumers, 71% consume cannabis for recreational and social reasons, 56% consume for health or medical, and 32% consume for both. Regardless of their individual reasons for consumption, consumers are already understanding the health and medical potentials of cannabis. 86% agree marijuana has medical benefits, 87% agree marijuana can relieve pain, and around 2/3 agree marijuana is safer and healthier than drinking alcohol. When we look at the top reasons for consumption, our consumers tell us they are consuming to relieve pain, relax and be mellow, sleep better, manage anxiety, and then to get high or stoned is down in number 5. And while those ideas of health benefits of cannabis is not a new concept, perceptions, openness, and applications are still evolving. Many think of cannabis consumers as less active or healthy and more sedentary. But when we dive into the data, we can see that this is just not true. And that's clearly illustrated in a comparison between these two groups. Consumers and non-consumers are equally prioritizing, almost exactly as you can see, healthy habits like getting enough sleep, eating right, being physically active, and just generally taking care of themselves. And then when we look at actual fitness activities performed weekly, we can see that consumers are actually more active than non-consumers. 32% of consumers go to fitness center or gym weekly, 25% do yoga or Pilates, and 39% in outdoor recreation, again, more than non-consumers. So not only do we know that there's a high percentage of active adults that are also consumers, a research study conducted by University of Colorado, right here in our backyard, uncovers how cannabis is used for fitness regimens. They reported that among adult cannabis consumers in fully legal states, 82% reported having consumed cannabis within 1 hour before or 4 hours after exercise. Of that group, 70% said cannabis consumption made their exercise more enjoyable. 52% said they had greater motivation in exercise, and 78% reported a boost in their recovery. All right, now let's jump back over to our expert guests to hear straight from them, from the brand and athlete perspective, to get some insights. Nancy, we'll kick it off with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about Wana and what made you decide to begin working with athletes?
Sure, of course. Thank you for having me, Leah.
Absolutely.
Well, let me just do a 30-second elevator pitch on
Wana.
And then I have to give a shout out to BDS because you were actually instrumental in this development of this particular marketing initiative. So Wana is an infused products company. We have been in business since 2010. As Leah said, I am the co-founder and CEO of Wana. Wana is best known for its edibles, especially our gummies, as you can tell from that picture. And our motto is enhance your life. So we're always looking for ways to deepen that message, to make the brand be more meaningful and to come alive. And so, of course, one of the ways that people enhance their lives is to exercise and take care of their bodies. And I was really struck, even before the BDS research that Leah just went through came out, we have a very young and very active workforce. And I was very struck by the fact that so many people talked about the fact that they enjoyed using cannabis while they were hiking, while they were running, while they were skiing. And it flew in the face of this stereotype that we have that cannabis users really like to hang out and watch television and eat a lot of, junk food, etc. And so I started to get kind of curious about it. And just about that time, the research that you just went through came out, and it confirmed what my intuition was that actually cannabis and exercise and athletics are a great combination. So that led us to start thinking about how do we connect the enhancement of life with the brand and with the products. And that led to the idea of sponsoring some athletes. And Flavie was our first Wana sponsored athlete. So that's how we kind of got into it.
That's perfect segue, Flavie. I'd love to hear a bit more about your journey and how you connected with Wana Brands.
Yes, thank you. Thrilled to be here. First of all, I do have a full-time job. I always get that question, but I otherwise dedicate most of my time to training and competing as a mountain ultra runner. And I've been benefiting from the cannabis benefits from a training, pain, recovery management standpoint for quite some time now. So I was a recreational user at first and started integrating cannabis to my training routine pretty organically. First, as a bodybuilder, I was doing a lot of weightlifting competitions, and my friend were partaking, and I gave it a try, and quickly replaced a lot of my pre-workout called Rage or Anal Explode, and full of chemicals that you can find at your local GNC. I replaced that with a nice kick of sativa or BV for my workouts. But really so that was kind of like my first experience, first really positive experience. But really the biggest benefit and breakthrough for me happened after I transitioned out of the Army. I served in the Army and suffered multiple femur stress fractures from training, just doing regular Army work, carrying heavy loads every day, and also had a lot of wear and tear from just my regular training outside of the Army as well. So, so when I, dealing with those injuries, when I transitioned out of the Army, the VA, the Army was quick to prescribe pain medication. And I was definitely wary of that. I was looking for a better way to recover and manage the pain, especially as I was really entertaining competing in ultra running and taking that on. So, so that's kind of how I started diving a little bit further into, what type of cannabis products were available. And luckily, actually, when I got out of the Army, that's when the 2012, the industry became legal in Colorado. So I joined the industry, started working in the industry, and benefited, to have access to a lot of products, different products, but also CBD type products. And through error and trials, I started having, seeing a lot of benefits from an inflammation standpoint, pain standpoint, from the different type of products that were on the market. And that's where I connected with Wana. Through events in cannabis, we connected, and Wana already had top-notch products. They were expanding their line into CBD products. And so it was really just a great connection immediately. They had a great message as far as the culture and their message to enhance life and making it part of your life, and so that's where I got the opportunity and jumped on the opportunity to be able to partner and have a voice via Wana, and definitely thrilled about. It's been a great experience. It's been great to have a platform, to have a piece. And to be able to talk to people, educate people, and then hopefully one step at a time towards legalization. So,
Match made in heaven.
It was for us too. Yeah.
And Flavie, do you mind sharing with us a little bit? How are you incorporating cannabis into your workout and race regimens?
Yeah, so for me, something I really want to highlight. I mean, there's definitely two different use between the THC based only products and then CBD THC ratio type products. So pre-workout, before training, before a run or a session at the gym, usually I'll use a small dose of a sativa type products. Usually I'll do a sativa gummy, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. And that's, provides me with that effects of being really focused on my training. And if I don't feel great that day, we'll just have that extra kick when I still can have a really good training. So that's really more, I think the sativa THC type products are more from a mental aspect. And that's really where I get, the most benefit. And then when it comes to, and then also, during my run, usually I'll pack, if I go on a long run, 5-6 hour type run. I'm sure André knows about all that. It's just long time on my feet.
And by the way, you didn't hear that wrong. She said 5 or 6 hour runs.
So
I don't even like to drive that long.
So I'll pack an extra gummy to just have maybe a couple hours from finishing my run and kind of finish strong. And then as far as the CBD ratio, I use a lot of 2-to-1, 1-to-1 type products. Those will come into play after my workouts or on my rest days, and that will help reduce the inflammation. I mean, I have a lot of scar tissue from previous injuries and just ongoing soreness from all the training. So that will just help me speed up the recovery, sleep better. Sleep is so important to recover. And so, it will help me get back at it the next day, and hopefully I'll have a better performance overall on race day. So,
excellent. Let's get André into the mix. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background, André, and how you have found yourself as a cannathlete and advocate.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, it's awesome to be part of the conversation here with you and Nancy and Flavie. I think, just starting from the fact that there's still the stereotype of a stoner, that just blows me away. I mean, I've always been a super active person, and although I can be lazy, cannabis has never been a reason that I was being a couch potato or something. So there's a lot of different attitudes and motivations in life, but cannabis has always been a positive, and I really do want to be part of this movement to help make cannabis one of the first tools that people are looking to, at least as a possible option, instead of one of the last, or one of the ones that we're just lucky, maybe to have stumbled across to help us. And so, for me, that story really starts after a traumatic double amputation, after I was run over by a subway train in Prague in the Czech Republic, where I was a student. And, after obviously a, very intense hospital stay, I left with, some prescription drugs that are widely abused. And, having been a pretty healthy and clean and drug avoiding person, I really didn't want to take those. And, I found that what I thought was sort of recreational use or maybe even escapism when I was, not able to handle pain and neuropathic pain, phantom limb pain, and just the emotional sort of trauma of trying to recover, that, cannabis was, at least for me, important part of recovery. And, so there was a sort of second epiphany, years later. I mean, the start of this after my accident was 2004, so I wasn't even aware, of sort of medicinal use cannabis. I was 23 years old. But, probably about 10 years later, you had legalization in Washington, and just sort of on a day at work, I was in research at the University of Washington, and a colleague handed me a CBD predominant soft gel because I was complaining of a headache. And, so it was sort of the realization there that there was sort of a clear-headed, tool, and all of these new tools and precise dosage that was coming online because of legalization, and just the openness that suddenly existed between people who were using it and athletes. I kind of took my background in biochemistry and dove into the literature, and it's kind of that blinders off moment where you just see a lot of potential, and of course the big long history of cannabis use. So I'm just excited that we're having these conversations. Obviously, there's a lot that still isn't known. It's difficult because working in cannabis, would be very careful about making claims. So I'll preface anything I say is just maybe the circumstances where I'm reaching for cannabis without I suppose claiming that it works. I'll leave that to the audience to try for themselves, or ask other friends and family what their experience has been with how successful it's been in helping them with whatever they're using it for.
And then can you tell us a little bit specifically about how you're using cannabis today in your the pre, during, and post training regimen?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm also doing sort of ultra endurance, athletics. 5-6 hours, you're getting to be a long time. I'm doing 24-hour bike rides, multi-day bike rides. I rode across the country in 2017, sleeping 90 minutes a night, so we're, pedaling 22 plus hours a day for 3,100 miles. And that'll break you down, mentally and emotionally. Sort of pre, during, and after, I got interested in using cannabis based on the suggested findings of research coming out of Europe and Israel, about anti-inflammatory properties, within the parameters of their study, but viewed as a plant that I was utilizing anyway. So let's see if it can help in sort of for recovery. And so I find that some mornings I'm reaching for cannabis just because I'm waking up rough, waking up sore, and I think having a good range of THC to CBD ratios is one of the reasons it's so nice to have Care by Design's line. That sometimes you're looking for sort of less fogginess, going to work and trying to be productive, or during rides, there's times where it could be a more recreational use. Just as if I'm doing 12, 16-hour training rides, which I've been known to do, sometimes it's nice to sort of let the mind wander. There's certainly other research that sort of suggests links or has hypotheses around the rewards, mechanisms and sort of that runner's high and endocannabinoid system. It'll be interesting to see more research comes out supporting that. But I do find it at the very least pairs well with my motivation out there sometimes.
Well, I'm sure this isn't the first time anyone has told you how inspiring your story is, and Flavie, yours as well. You're pretty extreme endurance athletes. I think we can all agree to that. But I'm struck by how many things each of you touched on that were so relatable to different audiences, replacing traditional pharmaceuticals with cannabis or relieving aches and pains, even your exploration of medical applications that kind of came on the heels of starting with more of recreational use. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who can look up to both of you and relate, even if they're not necessarily running or biking for 6 to 24 hours. So I'm sure people ask you a lot of questions on your social media pages and to your page directly. What's the most common question that you have to answer a lot? Flavie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, for me, it's funny. And they'll ask, what type of product I use, but then it's quickly followed by, well, but how can you run or do anything? Are you, isn't it interfering? Or so it's still, there's still that stigma, or how you're not falling asleep when you run or something. But so, I always answer with, it's a matter of dosing, and then I start. It's just a great opportunity to educate people and kind of start from scratch with that education. And I think people are looking for education, and they also want to be reassured because there is a lot of fear-based still stigma with the consumption. So that's kind of my answer, and how I can, hopefully, that person will take a chance, and hopefully will maybe help them become active actually, or have, actually be open to it.
Yeah. André, what would you say is the most common question you get?
I'm constantly surprised at sort of the the naivety or sort of the novice user that constantly talking to, and I think that's just where we're at, which is quite exciting, because there's a base level of information just to start with and get out there and educate people. So around Care by Design, a lot of it's about the line and when they might use different ratios, and why there are different ratios of CBD to THC. I'll get people sort of skeptical about cannabis use in the first place. I can relate, as probably high school and early, college days, where there were, uncomfortable experiences with cannabis, where it was much like drinking. It was all about maximum quantity, and it left me, less than ideal sort of state of being. And, I think there's a totally new way to use this, as a tool that just doesn't rely on, grabbing whatever you can buy and smoking it. So I think sort of talking them through what the effect might be, as far as their feeling and how it'll leave them. I get a lot of like, oh, I'm kind of old school, and they're drinking wine late into the night, and so I kind of make the comparison. I've been I think I was in a buffet line where I was talking about cannabis with somebody, and they offered me a beer, and I'm like, oh, I don't drink, and then we sort of had that conversation of what cannabis really is, and it's pretty simple to change some minds, I think, especially if they see you as sort of a level-headed, active, ambitious but fairly chill guy. So pretty basic questions still out there, and it's fun to have those conversations.
Absolutely. I want to pause for a moment and let everybody know that we're going to have a Q&A at the end for all three of our guests. So if you do have questions or anything sparks your interest that you want to hear more about, please go ahead in the application and feel free to send some questions our way. So Nancy, moving back to you, were any of these products, I mean, Flavie talked a lot about really dialing in dosing and CBD, THC. Were any of these products actually developed specifically with sports and fitness in mind?
No, and I want to elaborate on why no. And it goes back to our bodies, the endocannabinoid system in our bodies, which I think is fairly widely known now. It is one of the main regulators of the whole body. And so what ends up happening over time is that we develop deficiencies in the endocannabinoid system. And the cannabis plant is, uniquely created really to fill in those deficiencies, which is why THC and CBD works for so many different kinds of conditions. It works for pain, it works for anxiety, it works for inflammation. It works for sleep, because what it's doing is it's not fixing those things per se, it's actually getting the regulatory system back into its proper condition. And the reason I give that as a background to your question is because that means that products can really accomplish multiple things. So products, and both Flavie and André sort of alluded to this, the same product can work for a variety of different things. It can work for recovery, it can work for sleep, it can work for pain and inflammation. So there isn't really, at this point in time, a functional reason, except for marketing, of course, to try to formulate a product that is geared specifically for athletes. And on the marketing and branding side of it, what I would say is, as long as we have a regulatory structure that essentially makes our markets state-by-state markets, it's not really large enough to have that sort of micro consumer segmentation and targeting that one would see in a typical CPG type environment.
Well, having ambassadors like Flavie and André for CannaCraft and Care by Design is certainly a great way to work through some of the restrictions I'm sure you have in marketing. And
that's exactly right. I think rather than take it from the product form and product development angle, I think our philosophy was to find influencers who exemplified what we mean when we say that cannabis can enhance your life, right? And that's why we sought out athletes who are sort of living, walking emblems. And God, I'm so stunned by both of you. I'm so amazed at your endurance. It's incredible.
So on that, are there any other representatives or ambassadors that you either have or are looking for to exemplify really enhancing your life?
Yes, so we have another Wana athlete right now who's a very talented yogi named Martha Triantafilides. She has a very long Greek, beautiful last name. And she incorporates cannabis into her yoga practice personally, but she's also a practitioner. In fact, I hate this one, but she's in Greece teaching yoga for 4 months or something.
Sounds so nice.
It does sound so nice. And we actually just recently launched our products in California. So we are actively looking for some ambassadors and athletes that are skilled in sports that we tend to associate a little bit more with California, with surfing or skateboarding or possibly even golf if we go a little further south. So we are actively looking for more athletes to sponsor.
Great. And then kind of moving back to the product development perspective, is there anything coming down the line for Wana brands or just released that's relevant to the fitness community or any other benefits like that everybody should be aware of?
A lot of our focus coming up in 2020 is going to be on adding quick onset products to our portfolio. Our philosophy is to try to create a portfolio that lets people curate their own experience very precisely. So that means a lot of different THC CBD ratios. It means different dosages. It means having indica and sativa and hybrid products. And increasingly it means letting people have more control over onset and offset. And for athletes who may have specific goals in mind, it might be a nice option for them to have something that kicks in more quickly and doesn't last quite as long.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely something I know that some of us, I know personally, I have a very long onset, and that can be challenging at times.
Yep.
Well, moving on to a slightly different topic for a minute, I'd be remiss not to bring up the idea of controversy with cannabis and athletes. Flavie, is that something you experience?
Yes, I mean it's definitely there's still, I think, a long way to go before full acceptance, even in beautiful Colorado and in the Boulder bubble, which we're called the Mecca of endurance sports. But, I have a lot of friends here that are elite athletes and making a living of their sponsorships. And, if I happen to go to an event with them, a lot of times, I cannot mention that they do partake. And if somebody knows that, know of me and my consumption, they'll be quick to talk down or throw out, stereotypes. But the reality is that a lot of those elite athletes do partake, and so I think there's still a lot of closeted users in the athletic community. But I understand that I think that until it's federally legal, that's really when things will be able to turn around, and even Colorado border people will be able to be open and actually also talk about the benefits of their consumption. And then not so much of a controversy, but still a lot of stereotypes. For me, whether it's friends or if I'm at an event, with trail running, things like that, there's a lot of opportunities to get lost on the trails and things like that. So if I ever, stumble or kind of get a little bit off trail, people will be quick to say, oh, she's probably high, or, you had too many gummies today, or, so that was stereotypes, but it's, I laugh about it. And, in the end, I can prove myself. And
I think that you have proved
so
yourself.
It's okay. I can handle it.
And André, as an athlete in a wheelchair, how do you feel? Do you feel that you get a pass on some of those stereotypes and controversy, or do you still experience that?
Yeah, I kind of feel like the luckiest man alive. I mean, I don't I don't know whether it's to get a pass as a disabled athlete. I tend to just get on with people super well in the first place, and have also have a little bit of a different situation in that I'm not taking as far as athletics and going to races where you're talking about head-to-head competition or falling under regulatory bodies as much as I see myself as an explorer, and cannabis and attempting to sort of blaze a new path with that sort of ties in well with that. I also am mostly doing ultra endurance sports, and from the most part those athletes get it. They're always looking for the cleanest, healthiest way to live. I think cannabis ties in perfectly well with that. I mean, you talked about it earlier, prescription drugs, but there's also just over-the-counter, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And I think as far as replacement option, people see something from a plant as a no-brainer. And so, yeah, I mean, something I believe in. I don't worry too much about what other people think. I just think going out there and trying to be the best me is setting an example, and I don't have to worry about the example. Just be the best me I can be.
Well, it certainly is impressive what both of you are accomplishing. So any naysayers, I think, have no place to be doing that. So Nancy, back to the idea of dialing in onset, offset, thinking about sativa versus indica. How are you making decisions on kind of where to incorporate, whether it be chemistry or marketing, and really how to move forward the business according to the needs of the consumer base?
That's a great question, and it's not a simple one to answer either. I would divvy it up into several different categories. One is we are constantly looking at consumer research, trying to understand how people use the product, what they want the product to do for them, to try to make sure that we always have the consumer's perspective first and foremost in our minds. Secondly, we have a very wonderful, talented director of innovation, and he's constantly attending science conferences and networking with scientists and technologists and technology companies to really understand what's the cutting edge of what is being done with the plant everything from genetics to extraction to infusion of various different types of supplements and cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids and how things are being recombined. So you have to understand what people want. Then you have to understand what's possible and what the scientists are actually working on. And then you have to figure out what the market is actually ready for, because it is probably technically possible for us to put together products that may be more effective, but they also might be a bit more complex than the marketplace is ready to absorb right now. So I think it's a combination of all of those things. And then, of course, some of it is just regulatorily driven, right? We might say, hey, the sweet spot for THC is a 25 milligram individual product, but the regulations say 10 is the most you can do, right? So there's always, we have to temper everything against regulations and compliance as well.
Definitely. And then when it moving that science to individuals, Flavie and André, I'm wondering how you approach trying a new product that might come out either from Wana or Care by Design. How do you think about incorporating that and how it may or may not work within your existing routine?
Yes, I mean, usually I'll give it a try if I can break down the product, so cut it in half or something. I'll always start with a low dose. I think the key, especially for sports, I think a little bit goes a long way. We're not looking to impair anything, so yes, error and trial. So I'll schedule a training and really conduct it like an experiment, and then see how I feel as the time goes by and during my workout, and kind of assess that really organically. So that's how, and obviously I get a lot of information working with Wana. I'm able to get all the details, which puts me in a great position to assess those products. So even more, definitely a great benefit from that. So that's kind of how I start getting all the right information and then experimenting.
André, what about you?
Yeah, on the one hand, it's always so personal, so I definitely don't try to take just the effect of something on me and expect that it's going to be so wonderful for everybody on the planet. But yeah, I mean, R&D and testing, certainly making a push to through some partnerships, collect some athlete data, working with some experts in sports exercise and nutrition. So we excited to share sort of those partnerships when I get to. But yeah, it's for me, I'm always very sort of intuition driven as an athlete. I really don't ride with wattage meters, sometimes a GPS or speed or heart rate. I like to be in tune with my body. So when I'm doing long rides, I want to have a good sense of, if I'm doing damage, or if I can sustain a pace. I think, looking at numbers on the bike sometimes is unhelpful because a lot of it depends on how you feel. So, I try to take that into, any kind of product testing. I mean, ultimately, it's about how I feel out there, and so if it's improving that, or the way I feel the next day, or the way I feel for the next ride, then I just stick with it and see if that continues. And I think we're so early on that there's not a lot known, and just speaking to new products, it's hard to know what is going to work in the market. I mean, I think as you guys release data and research summaries, there's surprises in there, and I think going forward, we don't always know what's going to be adopted the most, and sometimes it'll probably be new cannabinoids that have a certain effect that sort of lead the way, and sometimes it might just be form factors and different things that are ease of use or integrate into an active lifestyle the best. And that's why it's exciting, because none of this is set yet, so we're going to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I want to remind everyone that we're going to take a few questions at the end. So if you have any for any three of our guests, please feel free to send that in now. But first, I'm going to take a crack at them myself with some quick fire round of questioning. Let's put them on the spot here. Hopefully a few fun questions, get to know them maybe a little bit better. This first question is for the athletes. You're crossing the finish line, the very end of the race. What's your finish line song? What's going through your head?
Having Alive from Zed. Actually, it was the first song.
What was that?
It's Alive from Zed.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was the first song I heard also finishing up my first ultra and then stuff. So it's my soundtrack, I guess.
Love it.
I never know what to do at a finish line. I mean, it's like crossing America 12 days. It's you expect it to be some big party, but like it's not. I don't do it for the finish line. I try not to sort of live my life that way. Anyways, it's about the beauty of new things and unknowns, and so probably just be something chill, like I don't know, Bob Dylan, Bucks of Rain, something.
What a metaphor for life. There's no finish line, just the journey, right?
Yes.
Flavie and André, another one for you guys. What is your favorite strain for race prep? Flavie?
Just to get things off, not necessarily a race, but good training. I mean, it's a classic, Durban Poison usually.
André, do you have a favorite?
I mean, I'm by no means the strain expert. I think like a lot of people might reach for an ACDC or a Blue Jay Way or something to sort of help with the nerves pre-race. I kind of love that part of pre-race. If I'm not nervous, I'm not doing something new, I'm not excited about it. So I kind of enjoy that part. So I might just run with I have a sour diesel ABX vape on me and something like that, or wedding cake always seems to be good.
This one's for Nancy. What is a gummy flavor you think would be delicious, but you think other people might think is really gross?
Well, that's so funny because we're always working on new flavors, and I was thinking that ginger might be delicious, but I got a big from everybody else. So I don't know that they thought it was gross, but it didn't get any big thumbs up either.
This one will go round robin. We'll have everybody answer. Let's start with Nancy again. What format of cannabis do you wish existed that you haven't seen out there today?
All right. Well, I have to first preface by saying that I believe the gummy to be the platonic ideal of edible formats because it's small, it's discreet. You are used to just eating one of them because of vitamins, etc. And I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to tell you that I also know why brands are not manufacturing it. But I'm definitely a salt person rather than a sweet person when it comes to snacks. And, like a bag of infused potato chips or something like that. I'll tell you why people aren't doing it is because, it's nobody, you can eat one gummy and be satisfied. You're not going to eat one potato chip and be satisfied. So a manufacturer has to make an entire bag of potato chips, and they're very hard to test. So I get why people aren't doing it, but that would be probably the one I would vote for.
Nice.
I'd go with some energy gel. I think it's been trained the best, but without too much. I'd love to see that
success.
again.
Yeah. Somebody did do that. I remember that. Yeah.
André?
Let's see. I mean, I agree with the gummies. I think, especially sort of during sport, having something that's moist, not something dry. Gummies kind of hold up in your pocket. I'd say as far as like, carrying a vape, which the 18-to-1 carbidazine vape, 100% cannabis oil. Whoever's buying cartridges out there, make sure that you're going to licensed dispensary and buying, quality products. But that's something that's always on me. I like that form factor and especially the immediacy of the effects. Even when doing high intensity cardiovascular workouts. I think not to get to advert on here, but like we have a partnership with Lagunitas, making hi-fi hops, absolute extracts, and for me that's one that didn't exist, and it's sort of the active lifestyle beverage, something that's not dehydrating or have the sort of fall off and tiredness associated with beer, and a high CBD version of that. And I would like to see a effervescent tablet. I think a lot of people are coming up with products that are reinventing the wheel. If you look at athletes, a lot of them have already dialed in their nutrition. They might not be looking for a new electrolyte drink that just has some CBD thrown in it. And so having something that you can add to what you're already comfortable using, be that pre, during, or post workout, I think could be wonderful.
That sounds great. Well, let's jump over to some of the questions from the audience, get some of your questions answered. Feel free to keep them coming in as we're going through. Well, this is a question I'm sure you guys get often, but what product, if just name one maybe, and tell us a little bit about it, what product are you using most often? Just, the specific one.
For me, easy, the 2-to-1 Wana, the user gummies. They're just a perfect combination for right after a workout, but also they're low dose still, so I can have multiple throughout the day. After, a good 6-8 hour of training, I can have them through the day, through the night, and it's going to really take care of like full recovery, and it's perfect dose, and it's found that it was the perfect ratio of CBD to THC to be the most helpful with still being alert, functional, and also have all the CBD benefits along with that. So
great.
And they taste awesome. So I would eat like bags of them, but yeah, there's still some
control.
And for me, oh, sorry if I jumped in early.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I would honestly say the whole sort of line of ratios. I'm not terribly familiar with Wana. I know you guys have several different ratios, but in Care by Design, I think having the THC there is important. It obviously depends a lot on the person's tolerance, but also just the time of day and the activity and what you're dealing with. So I'll use something with much higher THC. Sort of our 8-to-1 is one that I find myself using in most scenarios.
Excellent. And are there any products this is another audience question, any products that turn you off that you, even if they may be a great product, that you personally avoid?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think the candy flavored vapes, for one. Obviously, it looks like those are potentially destructive, but also I like a more purist cannabis flavoring.
For me, it's more so for concentrates, and really stay away from any butane, the wax shatter that used to be popular. But I've been in the industry, I tried them, but I think I'm not sure it's the healthiest. I could tell, from just knowing how my body should feel and, being healthy, I can definitely tell a lot of side effects pretty quickly. So that pretty much turns me off, to have all the chemical taste and then just a very chemical type effect. So I'll stay clear from that.
And Nancy, have you found that just from people sharing feedback with you and being involved in the athlete community, have people shared with you that there are different levels of potency that really athletes are leaning towards than the general population that are generally consuming your products?
No, and one of the things that is interesting about cannabis is that the same product and the same dosage can hit people so many different ways. And so it's not a cookie cutter type product. People really do need to, as Flavie was talking about before, you need to do some experimentation with it. Obviously, we encourage people who are using the products for particular health and wellness reasons to look for the lowest effective dose that they can find, right? So that's often, the industry says start low and go slow. That's what we recommend too. But there doesn't appear to me to be any particular magical dosage. It's very, very individual for people's metabolisms.
That actually goes well into another audience question we had here about how, Flavie and André, you keep track of how these products affect you, since, like Nancy said, everything affects people a little bit differently, and you both mentioned how you try things to incorporate. Do you keep a journal? Do you have pretty good memories, and you just, André, you mentioned you have a pretty good feel for these things, good intuition. How do you keep track?
Yeah, I can lead off. I'm not the tracking and documentation type. I mean, which is why I also wouldn't sort of be one to prescribe or give someone dose guidance. I think it is for each person to experiment and track how they're comfortable. I really go off of how I feel and and the intuition. So that's just personally the way that it works for me, and I'm running with that.
Well, great. We have another question for Nancy here. Where do you sell your products?
You can buy our products in the vast majority of dispensaries in Colorado. And then for our listeners who are not in Colorado, we've just launched in California. We're in hundreds of dispensaries in Oregon, Michigan, Illinois, Arizona, and Ohio. And I think I forgot one, but we're in 7 states and rapidly expanding to more. So hopefully within the next couple of years, almost anywhere you go that's legal for cannabis, you'll be able to find Wana.
And I'm guessing they can go to your website and get some more information about where they might be able to find.
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Well, we're running out of time here. Would love to wrap up a little bit with hearing how we should be following André and Flavie. André, what's next for you? Where should we be looking for you out on these races?
Yeah, I mean, next up, I'm trying to get a big adventure off the ground to cover the continent. So in my spirit of purest romantic adventure, trying to do something that's never been done before and cross each continent from the lowest point to the highest. Also be doing a lot of ultra cycling. You can go to cbd.org, and that's Care by Design website, and follow the newsletter there. Or my handles are all first and last name. So it's AndreKajlich. Not the simplest handle, but that's what I've got.
I'm used to the complicated last name situation. Flavie, where should we watch out for you, and how can people follow you?
We're already planning out next year's adventure. I think I want to try some more technical races out in Alaska. So excited for that. And then try to combine strength endurance and get into Spartan obstacle course type races. And you can check out Mostly Active on Instagram. You can just type in my first last name or Flavester on Instagram, and also I have some features on the WanaBrands.com website. So.
Good. Another good transition. Nancy, want to tell us where people can go to learn more about your products and follow what's going on at Wana Brands?
Sure. The easiest thing is to go to our website, which is WanaBrands.com, and Wana has one N. That's probably the biggest mistake that people make when they're looking for us online. So WanaBrands.com.
Excellent. And I want to quickly note a couple things about, we got lots and lots of great questions, some a little bit more medical advice in nature. So probably something that the athletes will stay away from giving advice, but I do encourage you. I know that for sure they're both really active on their social media. So if you ask them questions, I know that they're really good about answering how they incorporate products in their routine, how they think about about their own fitness, etc. Also,
if I could, I just was going to add it, for there, there are good answers out to a lot of those types of questions, and just projectcbd.org is a good place to go. They take a lot of the literature and kind of put it in more common language. So it's a good place for that kind of information that I can't give.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And then the other line of a lot of questions are about getting a little bit more data on consumers and how to use that to think about marketing for dispensaries, for brands. I encourage you to reach out to BDS Analytics. We can talk through different types of data that we may be able to help you with those types of questions. And from there, just want to thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. Nancy, Flavie, André, you have been wonderful guests and so informative, I'm sure, to everybody here. I know I need to go work out. I'm feeling a little bit like,
I'm feeling like a total slut listening to these two.
Exactly. Well, again, thank you all. The webinar will be available for download off of our website, and we'll talk to you soon.